Hi, guys. Welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's March 9th, 2024, and I'm here with Elijah Weintraub, our other co host, and he'll be joining us in a minute. So hopefully, everybody's doing well out there. It's starting to getting close to spring. See the flowers starting to bud a little bit. So um, that's usually what we expect right after football season and so forth. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. So I'm happy that everyone's joining us today, and thank you guys again, and for all the wishes for Steve as always. And let's jump right into it. We always start our show with a monologue, which is sponsored, of course, by Coriano Trucking, Summer Hill, New York. And you know, I'm going to talk about football a little bit because I'm seeing things this off season that I don't recall ever seeing to this extent. And this a lot has to do, I guess, with the upcoming draft in April. But we're talking about like salary cap, and a lot of guys are getting cut because of salary cap, and it's really unusual. And you're seeing such an abundance of free agencies, and but guys aren't really getting paid like they're expecting to get paid. And I hate to use the term collusion by the owners, but I mean they seem to have started with the running back pool, right? And this goes to like why Saquon Barkley was just not going to be franchise tagged, so his days are probably numbered. And we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing a lot of free agents like Derrick Henry, and so a ton of running backs are out there, wide receivers. And I was looking at it, and really, aside from the quarterbacks, of course, which those are the poster child. Those are what draws people, the Burrows and the Patrick Mahomes. Those guys get paid, so there's really no getting around that. The owners have to pay those guys. They're the marquee guys, and what I was seeing is, they're not paying running backs. They're starting to cut back on paying these defensive backs. But the defensive line guys are still getting paid. And I saw this yesterday that the Ravens, Justin, let's say his name again. It's always, but he just got a 4-year extension worth almost $100 million. So defensive linemen are getting paid, and like Chris Jones and all those kind of guys are getting paid, but a lot of other people aren't. The running backs, and I use that term collusion only because I mean it is what it is. They don't want to pay these running backs because it's not really a running game anymore.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting situation going on in the NFL right now, and a lot of franchise tags. And like I said, what happens when you pay guys? Look at the whole Russell Wilson situation in Denver, right?
Right.
Didn't work out, and they're going to pay the price for this because they're on the hook for like $70 million toward the cap and so forth. So there's a lot of movement going on with free agency now in the NFL, and a lot has to do with what the owners are willing to pay these guys. So I would love to hear your thoughts. And
Yeah. Yeah, that
Eli,
was
what do you think?
yeah, with Ravens defensive tackle Justin Madubik, that was pretty big deal yesterday.
Mataduki. Yeah.
Madubik, yeah. $98 million contract yesterday. Pretty good deal. But yeah, I think it's an interesting situation. Well, we'll start with the Russell Wilson stuff. Obviously, from day one, it did not work out. You had 11 wins out of your whole career with Denver. You spent 2-3 years there. It did not really work out in your favor. And it seemed like it ultimately came down to like the worst trade that the Denver Broncos ever made. From the Seattle perspective, I think it was one of the best ones that they've ever done in their entire franchise history. No question
No
asked there.
question.
But from the Denver side, that seemed to be the worst trade because you owe him still tons of money, $39 million to be exact. Plus, you have to worry about who's your quarterback. Since Peyton Manning left the Denver Broncos, they had no consistent quarterback that really said, "Yep, you're the quarterback. You're the answer." Since
Oh my God, they've had so many quarterbacks since
nothing
Peyton
worked.
Manning left, right? From
Right.
Brock Osweiler, etc.
Yes.
Those kind of guys. And
Nothing
you're
worked.
right. It didn't work out in Denver. So when you see a trade like that, it was completely one sided. Your Seahawks got the best of that deal, and
Absolutely.
you can't help but reference the Herschel Walker deal between the Vikings and the Cowboys so many years ago that helped build the dynasty for the Cowboys in the
Yeah.
'90s, right? So
And from the Saquon Barkley's perspective, there's an absolute good reason why the Giants don't want him. Number one, he gets pretty much injured every single week, or whatever one or out for such a long period of time. It is not worth the money to keep paying him just to have him bench. And I could see that perspective. Don't get me wrong. Saquon Barkley is a fantastic player, has done so much for the New York Giants. But at the same time, too, is you need to look at the factor of the injury. Look how much injury, how much time he missed, how much
I
money
know.
was being paid for nothing. That is the
But you
hurtful
watch,
part
so
of the New York Giants. I think Saquon Barkley will get a good contract somewhere else. I have a good feeling, but that is something you got to keep in mind. Who wants him, considering the time he was out and how much money he wants, and how is it going to play out? You have plenty of other top-notch guys entering the free agent market, if not in the draft, all over the place. That could be what Saquon Barkley is asking for and the injury level. But that
I
is, of
know.
course,
And
a
listen,
decision that they
I
have.
was a supporter of him when he was drafted by the Giants. And he's a terrific athlete, and I think he's still relatively young. He's only
He's
27 years old.
still has ton of potential, but those are things you have to keep in mind, though. How do you consider the fact of the market price? How do you consider the price of his injury history? What hasn't he had yet? What could be the possible next factor? That's something you got
Yeah.
to keep in mind. And a lot of these
I
teams have
think
to really
I
give up
think
money.
yeah, I think where Saquon Barkley would be good. I see two landing spots for him. I don't know the situation right now with Harbaugh taking over in San Diego.
And
Whether that means
LA.
Austin Eckler's days are numbered, but he could be a good fit in there to complement
Yeah, you
Justin
could.
Herbert. But I also see, Eli, that his potential. I would not be surprised at all if he ends up with the Dallas Cowboys, coming off that Tony Pollard hasn't really
I
recovered
don't
from
know
that
about the
injury.
Dallas Cowboys, but the Chargers, that's definitely a good possibility there. I don't know. I don't know how much express interest the Dallas Cowboys would want. At the same time, they're already good enough to begin with against the Giants.
But they're missing a running back right now, and
Right,
that's
they
a
are.
key.
It is
So,
key, but you got to keep in mind, do you want to see injury? How much you want to pay? And that's factors you need to keep in mind about. He's a dangerous weapon for sure, but there's still a
yep.
lot of factors that are behind the scenes that we don't know ourselves. And that's why I think
But
he's
it, it,
holding back a
it
lot of
really
teams.
it really is something though that we're seeing the level of free agency that's happening now. You never see like 10 legitimate number one running backs out on
Yes.
the free agent market. It's crazy. It's
And what
nuts.
about the safety market too? The ton of safeties either got a good contract extensions or they're being let go. It's pretty interesting. I know Jordan Poyer from the Bills, he was stepped down. Taylor Rep from the Bills, he got an extension. But there's some still crucial guys that are either been released or given a good contract. So you got to think of the same time
Yeah,
too is you have this market for whatever reason is so in depth and extreme. It's different than
it
usual.
is. It is. So let a couple other quick notes in the NFL, right?
Yeah, I have a
Kind
ton of
of
them. So
wasn't unexpected that Kelsey retires from the
yeah.
Eagles, and
Incredible season, incredible career rather. He
Jason,
won a
right?
Super Bowl. There's not much more you could ask. Congratulations, Jason Kelsey.
Yeah. And one other notable thing for a potential Hall of Famer, Mike Evans, re-signs with Tampa
Yes,
Bay.
that I think is
Uh,
huge. I think he is a fantastic player. Mike Evans
yep.
has a great potential in the Tampa Bay area, and he will absolutely grow and go to the extra mile. And before we go back to you, Jim, we have a comment from Eric. Good morning to all. Good morning to you, Eric.
Hey,
Thank
Eric.
you.
Good morning. Eric's our Westchester, Pennsylvania loyal listener, and he's with us every week, and we certainly do thank him for that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Don't forget to comment anywhere you're watching YouTube, Facebook, or X Twitter. And also don't forget to send us an email at sportsmono@gmail.com.
Yep, we got a couple of good emails from
Yes, we
loyal
did.
listeners this week. It was excellent. So yeah, the NFL. Okay, so we've kind of covered the NFL, but
Yeah, so
like I said,
basically, bottom
yeah,
line is trades are happening. Tons of guys are being either released or signed on. from some big names too. Jamal Adams, Seattle safety is released. Good decision by Seattle. I'm going to say that for a second, not just because I'm a Seattle fan, but because he really played only one game. You paid him so much money, he did nothing this year. So I'm going
Yeah,
to
that
just
was a
be
big
flat
bust
out honest.
mistake.
So good trade from Seattle to get rid of him. Other big names, Michael Pittman was tagged by the Colts. We're 50 days away from the draft. That's good. About 6-7 players have not been tagged, top guys. And one other note from the NFL Network's Good Morning Football will be moving studio locations from New York to Los Angeles, and there will now be cut to a 2-hour show. So we'll see if that has an interference or how that will play out with how the Good Morning Football show usually is.
Okay,
And
good
yes,
stuff.
that's all the notes. And the push for 18 games is still on the market at the moment for the NFL, which
Yep.
I think that'll be a good decision, in my opinion. I want to see more football games. Now, I know a lot of people saying, what about the 2 buys? But I think 18 games, 1 buy is perfectly good enough, and that'll push Super Bowl back to President's Day week. That's just my opinion. Jim, how would you view the 18-game market if that
Yeah,
were happening?
yeah. I think the union's going to push back on an 18-game schedule, though. So I
Yeah,
don't know if that's absolutely going to happen. But yeah, there is talk about it because the NFL. When you see what goes on in the playoffs and the viewership and the Super Bowl, it's like no other sport, right? No
yeah,
other sport.
absolutely. There's no question.
So so let's jump into the NHL. You and I were talking before the show that we're only 20 games left into this season, which is absolutely hard to believe that the
It's
season has gone
crazy.
so quickly. It's crazy, right?
It's gone so quickly. And I think this week's trade deadline, the amount of trades that happen, both on the biggest sides, including New York and Vegas, picking up the big winners of the whole trade deadline, in my opinion. Uh, they had some pretty big names picked up. Devils, a big shocking week for them overall. And this is a crazy week in the NHL. And that was right even before the trade deadline closed, and we're still getting tons of news heading into this weekend, heading into next. That's what makes the NHL so exciting this time around.
Yep. And I got to give you some kudos here because you called the Lindy Ruff was going to get canned by the Devils, and he did, which I
Yeah,
was a little surprised about.
in regards to the Lindy Ruff
Everyone,
situation, I think he was a good coach. That game against Florida where they lost to, it definitely proved that he was a decent coach. At the end of the day, they were short goalies and they were short defensive wise. They did pick up 2 goalies from both San Jose and Montreal, so we'll see that how it plays out. However, we did lose Vitek Vanacek and a top guy, which I was actually shocked about, Tyler Toffoli, who is the top man coming into this season. He was from Calgary. He goes to Winnipeg. They traded him. Smart decision. Wasn't a huge factor this year, but I think the Devils did ultimately some right decisions, and we'll see how this plays out. As this will have today's game versus Carolina, 12:30 on ABC. We'll give you a full answer and see how the Devils will shape up and be the rest of the way, and do they still have a shot at the playoffs? Although 5 points back from at least a wild card spot.
yeah, and it looked like one of the bigger players in the trade deadline was the Carolina Hurricanes made some moves.
Absolutely.
They picked up the Rangers, went out and got Alex Wenberg from Seattle. So, when I look at the Rangers and so forth, they started off, they're up there, one of the top 4. I think the top
They're
4
top
teams in
three,
the league.
top three
Yeah,
in the East right now
right. So you got Florida, Boston, Vancouver, the Rangers. These are the kind of the teams. But the
to watch
Rangers,
out for.
yeah, they seem to be missing, always seem to be missing one piece. And with the year Artemi Panarin's having, he's had a history of not having great playoff runs, which is kind of why the Rangers haven't gone as far as we were expecting them to. And of course, you got the Matt Rempe situation, right? The new guy, the new enforcer. He's taking on everybody in the
Listen,
league, kind of thing.
I love it. I give him kudos to be willing to fight out there, and I give kudos mostly to the refs to let him fight out there because we never get to see this. This is now bringing back to the old school hockey that we once loved and enjoyed. So I give kudos to Rempe and the referees for letting him give him a good fight out there and let it keep going. I want to see more from Rempe, and I can't wait for the playoffs to see him in the fights and everything. This will be good. This will be
Yeah,
exciting.
it's actually kind of like a throwback, and a lot of people don't care for fighting in the NHL, but it's one of those sports where it was actually part of the game. And we had some comments from one of our loyal listeners, Jim Walsh, talking about some of the great fighters in days past, and he brought up Ty Domi and
Yep.
those kind of guys, Bob Probert, Joey Koser, and so forth. So listen, this guy Rempe, he's big, so people have to I don't know what kind of a hockey player is. We don't get enough to see him because he's always in the
No.
penalty box.
But listen,
But yeah, 20 games left, Eli. 20 games.
20
Hard to
games
believe.
left. Absolutely great fighter. Although we would love to see more hockey time. I enjoy the fights too. So keep at it, Rempe.
And I will tell you this, though, of all from my history of watching the NHL, and like I said, back in the 70s and the 80s, Clark Gillies was a former captain of the New York Islanders on 4 Stanley Cup teams, was one fighter that was, I don't know, man.
One of a
I
kind.
saw a lot of people challenged him, but nobody ever beat him. So
All right.
good stuff, though. Good
All right.
stuff.
Good stuff.
Right?
And I think I'll bring it this one other note now. Just a reminder, guys, today at 3:00, the Penguins take on the Bruins on ABC. Disney will also be simulcasting that game since their own ESPN owns Disney owns ESPN rather. They'll be doing their second annual Big City Greens Classic. Last year they did it. It was tons of success. Last year was Rangers versus, I believe, Washington. Yeah, Washington versus New York. Worked out really good. This time it's a battle between Alice Grandma and Cricket Green as the head coaches. And I believe Bill Green and Tilly Green, the two characters, will be in net and goal for the animated game. It's better than the NFL's version of Toy Story. I'll give you that much. If you haven't seen last year, watch the highlights on YouTube. Ton of fun. They keep up the pace. The characters are animated. Everything's animated. Hockey games animated. The broadcasters, Kevin Weeks, Drew Carter, Ardo Cal, they're all animated. Tons of fun. Go check that out if you can. It's on Disney Channel, Disney XD, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, wherever you can watch it. Definitely worth.
And I'm
watching.
glad you brought that up because
It's a lot of
one
fun.
of our favorites of our show is Arda
Ardo
Ocal.
Cal.
Who's going to be
He'll be a silent
he's gonna be
reporter.
covering the game.
Yeah, he'll be animated. Animated silent reporter. So check that out. Tons of fun.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun last year, and I can't wait to see this year. It's a lot better than the NFL, folks. If you didn't like the NFL's Toy Story version, you'll really like this version with the Big City Greens. It worked great last year. Good market idea for ESPN and Disney.
So guess what? We're tomorrow, 1 week away from Selection Sunday and NCAA college basketball, which is
it's exciting.
It really is exciting. I had an opportunity to go see Providence play a couple of weeks ago. I got a friend of mine that I talked to. He's a Providence grad. They got a big game tonight, so they're kind of like on the bubble, as we say.
Yeah.
They got to play UConn tonight. It's kind of either win or you're not in kind of situation. But you have all of the conference tournaments starting this week, and
you have all of
the automatic bids and so forth. So
Seton Hall's been pretty good too. It's been fun to watch Seton Hall.
They are pretty good. Actually.
So yeah, and then you have the Big East finals coming up soon. So it's perfect time to be watching college basketball. Great day.
They draw very well the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden. That gets underway, I think, on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of teams in the Big East, but when you look at it, right, UConn is up there, Kentucky, Houston, Purdue. These are the kind of the top 4 teams. And listen, don't dismiss the usual suspects, right? Duke and North Carolina are starting to really come together, getting close to tournament times. So you love to see when North Carolina and Duke are in the mix because they're a big draw, and can't wait for this stuff to get going.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, tons of fun. It'll be exciting. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. So Eli, let's touch base. We're getting pretty close to opening day in Major League Baseball, right?
Yes, indeed.
See a lot of things. A lot of question marks, like with the Yankees. There's Carlos Rodon. I mean, they're paying him a ton of money. When you look at it on paper, I going up and down the Yankees lineup, they didn't really improve themselves a lot more. But they're getting Juan Soto was a big deal, so that's gonna play well. That's gonna get them some more wins, whether he stays with the Yankees or moves on if free agency after the season remains to be seen. But it's starting to get close to the long 162 game season, and I have funny that we talk about it because Major League Baseball. We're going to show a picture later, which I stumbled across, and it has a lot to do with one of my 8-time favorite characters and actors, and the New York Yankees. So we'll show that picture later on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one other news I saw from the Major League Baseball is Red Sox. Lucas Lodio,
Giolotti, yeah.
torn UCL. He could miss the
Yeah.
entire season. So that is not good for the Red Sox, and no, in that matter.
Yeah, I think they say Giolito.
Giolito. Giolito sounds
Right?
right. Yeah, Giolito.
Yeah, and they paid somebody else. The Red Sox paid some guy I never
Yeah.
really even heard of.
Yeah, Red
Bello.
Sox are definitely in trouble for heading into the start of the season, and this is just preseason and spring training.
Yeah, they gave Brian Bello $55 million. I mean, I don't.
Wow.
Crazy. And the one thing that's different, we talked about like the salary cap issues in the NFL. Baseball doesn't really have that. And baseball, just like the NBA, these contracts are guaranteed. These guys get all of that money,
They get
no
the big
matter
bucks.
what.
Right.
In the NFL, it's signing bonuses and salary caps. So when somebody signs, we talked about the Ravens defensive tackle getting 98 million. That doesn't mean he's going to get 98 million. It
No.
means, a lot of that. But in Major League Baseball and the NBA, they get every penny of it. And you could talk about, perfect example is this guy, Ben Simmons. He's
Right.
played for 10 minutes in the past 3 years, and he's going to make $40 million next year. It's amazing.
It's tons of money. Tons.
Oh, God. Incredible.
Jeez.
But one guy did retire, and Yankee fans will be, first of all, they're happy he's not with the Yankees anymore, but Josh Donaldson retired. So somebody's not decided they're not going to pay a guy that can hit 220 because you can get a guy from the minor leagues to hit 220. So
Yeah.
he's one of those casualties. Had a decent career, 261, was an MVP 1 year, but certainly didn't work out in New York for him.
Absolutely.
Let's see. And yeah, you and I have talked about it time and time again. When you look at the Dodgers, it looks like an all-star team. But you can't dismiss
Shohei Ohtani. That's the winner. They got him. He was hot in this preseason, spring training. He is a dangerous weapon heading into the season.
They got 3 aces on that. Ohtani's not pitching this year, but they got Yamamoto guy. They got Tyler Glasnow.
He's still going to do stuff. If you think he might just hit it, he's not going to be the same Moshe Ohtani. But he is going to be huge. Trust me when I say it.
Oh, God. Dodgers will sell out every game.
Absolutely. No matter where, if it's in LA or it's around here in New York or anywhere else.
That's right. You got it. So, wow, that's good stuff. So baseball is right around the corner. Opening day is less than 2 weeks away, 2.5 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Yep.
Right. So Eli, let's jump into some other stuff. We let's got some random points of interest. Kind of wanted to touch base on. And of course, that's sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. And when we talk about, we touched on it last week, but she did end up breaking the record last week, Caitlin Clark. And, but comparing her to Pete Maravich is kind of silly because Pete Maravich did it in so many fewer games without a three-pointer. He was averaging like 30 plus per game. But Caitlin Clark has reinvigorated women's college basketball to a point where, it's actually been exciting and people have been following it. And she's actually a good kid too.
Really good.
So she's on the way. She's declared she's going to go to the WNBA draft, which should obviously be the number 1 pick. But the question always remains with this nil stuff going on in college. Is she going to make as much money in the WNBA as she can be in the point guard for a college basketball team? Crazy.
We'll find out.
Even to think, right? We talk about that though, but you got to give her credit, no question about it. Kind of anticlimactic last week. I was actually watching the game because I wanted to see her break the record. And she actually broke the record on a foul shot. I was expecting it to be like a 3-point play or something, but it wasn't. right?
You got to make it exciting with the foul shot. Has to be. Has to be something random.
Yep.
That's basically random points.
And we were talking before a little bit about, the money that these Major League Baseball players are getting, right? The Philadelphia Phillies signed Zach Wheeler to a 3-year, $126 million extension. I mean, the numbers are just mind-blowing. I mean, and when you think about it, the best pitchers in the game, I guess, he's kind of up there now, but then why are guys like Blake Snell, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, he's still out there in free agency. So, it's hard to figure, who's going to get this money, but that's a staggering amount of money for the Phillies to pay a guy, Zach Wheeler. That kind of money. That's
tons of money, really. Yeah.
Yep. So, a couple other quick things.
Yep. And then I'll give some notes.
This was an interesting thing. And the Dartmouth men's basketball team voted to unionize. And I don't know, it's kind of unusual, obviously, but you could see that this is coming, right? It started with nil, and now the questions remain, about are they employees or are they not employees? And my position was always that they're not employees. They're getting their athletes that are getting their education paid for, and but this could change the whole tide of college sports, because this isn't going to be the last time. This is just Dartmouth right now, and this is going to open up Pandora's box, and we could be seeing NCAA sports across the board being a union itself.
Absolutely. We'll figure it out, I guess. See how it dies out.
A couple other quick things. Rafael Nadal. Now, we talked about it. We seen Federer go, and we see maybe some Novak Djokovic maybe not being the dominant guy. He lost in the finals at the Australian Open, but his career is starting to come. Age is starting to creep in. One of the greatest players of all time. I don't know how much we're going to get a chance to see him. Netflix did this kind of a match between him and Carlos Alcaraz, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously it drew. People love to see the guy play, but I'm going to be disappointed not to be able to see him play on a regular basis like I was used to for the past 20 years. Great player.
100%. It's going to be different.
Yeah, and just a reminder, when we get emails from people, like I said, Jim Walsh sent us a thing. It was yesterday was the anniversary of Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier fight, the first fight in Madison Square Garden.
I saw that.
The fight of the century. And Jim, it didn't go unnoticed with me. I watched all three of them on replays time and time again. Excuse me. And you know what? The difference though, back then, boxing was so awesome. There was so many great fighters, and it's different now. Boxing, for the most part, really doesn't even exist. There's no press. Nobody wants to watch it. And I think the reason being is this UFC has come and basically taken over. And my position, I'm not a UFC guy. I find it to be almost over the top barbaric. It's just brutal. It doesn't require a lot of skill other than brute force, like Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and George Foreman and the great boxers of all time. Boxing is kind of gone by the wayside. Crazy.
Yeah. I'll bring up
one other thing I wanted to bring up, Eli, because you and I were talking about it. It was big controversy in a high school basketball game here in New Jersey, the Camden Manasquan game, and it was crazy. Yeah, so Camden hits the two foul shots, go up by 1 point, and then Manasquan gets the ball, go down. You can clearly see the shot was tipped in before the clock expired, but there is no video replay in high school basketball. So
in New Jersey,
even though we all saw that the game should have been won, it would have been maybe the biggest upset in high school basketball history. Literally, not underestimating that or over exaggerating it. But you you can't change it. They appealed. It's never going to change. But I think, the players, as they grow older and they're going to reflect back on that game saying, we was robbed. They were.
Here's my thoughts on it. Here's time to rip people a new one. Final score was 46-45. That was number 12, Griffin Lindstra, who made that basket. There was 0.5 seconds on the clock. The initial referee said good. And the fact that you took it away was absolutely mind-blowing. And the fact that the league had the guts to comment and say, well, the officiating crew reports indicated the post-game review of footage of the play in question convinced them that the basket should have counted. The results could not and cannot be changed. And even the governor refuses to make a statement. He says he has to go all the way, that he has to go to the other man for the response that there is no say he has. Absolutely ridiculous. I get it. There's no replay. But when the initial call is good, how do you reverse it? I don't understand. Can you explain that one to me? Everybody saw 0.5 seconds. You had 3 referees, 2 athletic directors. You had the score operator, the scorebook keepers. How in the world is that possible? And the fact that it made all local news stations, almost ESPN, and the headlines of CBS Sports is mind-blowing and absolutely a disgrace. NJ proved that game that we have the worst refs. Sorry to go all crazy enough, but that is my thoughts on that whole game.
Yeah, no, it was really something thing. It was like the topic of sports for the day after it happened. So
I had to give my little rant about it because you had to.
I know, I could sense your passion on it. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, let me give some random points real quick. Before I do that, we have a comment. Guy Corona fixed. Yep, thank you. Smart man.
Well, listen, I don't know. I don't know if it's fixed. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it. If the governor refused to do anything about it, and he said, well, it's the next man's office. That goes to show it is fixed. Good job, Mr. Coriano. All right,
but you gotta feel for the Manasquan team, though. They
100%.
really got robbed.
Absolutely. Here are my random points I'll bring up real quick. The 2027 NBA All-Star Game will be played in Phoenix at Footprint Center Arena. So that is some interesting news there. Toronto Raptors center Kelly Olynyk has agreed to a 2-year, $26 million contract extension. Over back in high school sports, the Don Bosco Ironmen are your non-public A champions as they beat Paul VI, 56-29 from Rutgers University. Mr. Dylan Harper, of course, put on a great show. Non-public B game saw a St. Rose victory over Montclair Immaculate, 73-29 the final. More games happening today, including that Camden game at 12 o'clock, in case you're interested. I have to throw that out there. And just 2 other things in the world of St. Mary's sports. St. Mary's LJ Falcone will be going to Darrow Prep School in Albany, New York. Congratulations to him, and enjoy the snow. And finally, thanks again to the girls basketball team for inviting us the broadcasting last night to their team dinner. It was a true honor. Really grateful. Great season. Now on to baseball and softball. And final news for my random points. Fox will have an exclusive primetime college football game on Friday nights going forward this upcoming season on top of their already crazy Saturday lineup. And that is the random point I have to offer. And comment from Guy Coriano, call Pete Rose. All right.
You know what? I'm glad that you brought that up, that Don Bosco won the non-public A, because they have probably one of the best top 5 players in the country in Dylan Harper, son of former NBA star Ron Harper, and his brother is also at Rutgers. So I don't know. Do you know where he's going? Is he going to Rutgers?
Dylan Harper's going to Rutgers. He's going to Rutgers,
he is going. Okay.
And he is the number 1 commit to Rutgers, and all the league insiders are on top of him already. They've been retweeting all about him. That includes Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN. All those top guys, they're reporting about him already. So he is a top-notch player. As long as he can stay healthy and perform strong in Rutgers, he is an absolute number 1 commit heading into the NBA a few years later to come. So just watch out, guys.
That's a big catch for Rutgers to put them kind of back in the mix here, because
right, they're going to be back in it. They're going to be a top-notch school to watch out for heading in.
Yeah, but you're right. New Jersey basketball has been exciting this year with
ref calls and everything like that. You gotta. Yeah. That's sports in New Jersey, folks.
That's good stuff. Yeah,
let's go.
Glad you brought that up. All right, Eli, we got some other things. Let's touch base. First of all, let me give my movie recommendation here. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be about sports. And I'm going to go. It's one of my old-time favorite movies from, and this is back in the 30s. It was called Angels with Dirty Faces. I'm a James Cagney fan. James Cagney was in that movie with
I
Pat
thought you were gonna say-
O'Brien. The Bowery Boys were in
Right.
it, and even Humphrey Bogart was in it. So if you haven't seen the movie,
I thought you were gonna say Angels with Filthy Souls, the one from Home Alone, the one that
I
Kevin.
know that.
That's the
but
one I thought
that's-
you were gonna say once you said
The
Angels.
Home Alone one, they took that from Angels with Dirty Faces. So good catch on that one, by the
All
way.
right, and here's my
But if
movie
you haven't
recommendation.
seen it, it's a great movie. It's really entertaining, and I know a lot of people, the younger guys, don't like those old movies from the 30s and 40s. But I'm a James Cagney fan, always have been. Had an opportunity to go see Cagney the musical on off Broadway a few years back, and he's one of my favorite actors of all time. So
Yeah,
that's a great movie.
my movie recommendation this week. I had the opportunity to see with the school Back to the Future, the musical on Broadway. Fantastic Broadway production. One of the most funniest plays I have seen of all time on Broadway. Definitely worth watching. Not my top favorite. Nothing beats The Lion King and MJ and Aladdin, but definitely one of the funniest ones out there. You have to check that out. And speaking of it's a movie, Back to the Future will be my movie recommendation. The movie was identical to the Broadway play. So either check out the movie or go see the Broadway show in New York. Really good Broadway production.
Oh, no cussing. Yeah, I didn't realize that was on Broadway, to be quite
It was like
honest.
a new play, a year old, I believe.
Yeah. It's kind of funny when I think about it because I was a movie guy that made fun of people that went to Broadway. I thought it'd be boring and so forth. But over the course of, the past decade or so, I've had an opportunity to go see some Broadway shows, and it's
And they're
really,
awesome.
they really are more awesome than I gave it credit for, and I'm a big fan of it. And
I enjoy seeing Broadway shows. Worth every penny, in my opinion.
And by the way, I'm a Back to the Future fan. The first one. I know
Yeah.
they did a second
Yeah.
and a third, which are really
100%.
not even comparable. But
Nothing beats always the first one. That's
Yeah.
that's a movie tradition for
yeah,
sure.
and it's kind of sad to see what the condition. Michael J. Fox was a young movie
Yeah.
star, and he's been having some major issues with Parkinson's, something I'm a little familiar with. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that show. That's good recommendation there. Yeah.
Here's the photo.
Okay, now this photo, if you're driving and listening to the show, you have to go back home so you can actually see the picture that I posted here. That picture is of one of my favorite Hollywood guys of all time. That's Jackie Gleason at a New York Yankees exhibition game, taking a swing in Yankee Stadium. I mean, A, look at the size of him, and B, it's such a classic picture.
Wow.
I like I said, if you're listening to the show, you need to check out the show so you can see this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures in sports I've ever seen. I love it.
Wow.
I love
All
it.
right. Good picture.
And listen, as you know, I'm a Honeymooners fan, which is the show from the
Yep.
50s. And Jackie Gleason, he never rehearsed the show. Everything he did was kind of off the
Never
cuff, and it was
disappointed, it
just
seems.
great. But that is one of my favorite pictures. I found that somewhere I think on Facebook or X or whatever it was. But I love that picture. Thanks for posting it, Eli.
All right.
So, Eli,
Notable
we have
passings,
some
unfortunately.
notable passings this week, and I'll start off with kind of very notable because if you're an NFL fan, and I had an opportunity to meet this gentleman, this Chris Mortensen passed away. He was battling throat cancer since 2016, and he hung in there for a while. He was 76 years old, but he was highly respectable in NFL circles from a reporting perspective. And when I had an opportunity to meet him, he was gracious and very nice. But that was a big loss for ESPN and the world of sports. So
Absolutely. When did you
you
meet
know,
him? Like, where was this like interaction? You gotta explain the story now.
I met him when I went to the NFL draft about 25 years ago with my brother. This was way before the NFL draft has become the production that it is today. So I
Right.
had an opportunity to get there, and that's also the same draft that I got a chance to spend with my brother, and spent the entire draft with Gil Brandt, who was the former general manager of the Dallas Cowboys, and still around, still does a blog and so forth. But yeah, I met Mortensen that day, and he was a gracious guy, very nice, big
Absolutely.
loss. Also, from the world of the NFL, and I didn't find this out until midweek, but Andy Russell, who was one of the linebackers on the Pittsburgh Steelers' first two Super Bowl victories. He was so one of the greatest linebacking crew of all time was Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, and Andy Russell. And Andy Russell was just, he was outstanding, an outstanding player, wore number 34 in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I know that our sponsor, Guy Coriano, certainly knows who Andy Russell was. And Andy Russell was, he was a class act. He was when Chuck Noll took over the Pittsburgh Steelers, Andy Russell is the only guy he kept on that team. And he ultimately became, I think he might even have been the captain of that team, but he was a great player. And I didn't realize that he wasn't on the other two. So he was a little bit older than Lambert and Ham. So he retired after the second Super Bowl victory, but he was a great player. And I know Guy Coriano, our sponsor, big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, certainly knows who Andy Russell was.
Yeah.
Another one from the world of Major League Baseball. And a lot of people probably don't know who this guy was unless you were like, young like me and you watched and just lived and died sports. But UL Washington, he was 70 years old, and he was I remember him very vividly on the Kansas City Royals. Excuse me. But he was famous. He had a toothpick. You know how Dusty Baker chews the toothpick as a manager?
Yeah.
UL Washington was a player that he was famous for having a toothpick in his mouth in the field and up at bat. He was 70 years old, but he did make the 80 World Series with the Royals. I think they lost to the Phillies, though. But he was, he was notable from a character perspective in Major League Baseball. Very, good player. Had a good, 250 lifetime average, but a good fielder. Kind of the trend back then. These guys didn't hit for high averages, but they were valuable in the field, and he was one of them.
Yeah.
And also from the world of entertainment, Steve Lawrence, famous for Steve and Edie Gourmet, was 88. And Steve Lawrence had, Steve and Edie show. He was very popular on television and was a frequent guest of Johnny Carson's on The Tonight Show. And I wasn't even aware he was still, I thought he was going to be in his 90s. He was 88. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one too from the original creator of the Backyardigans. Janice Burgess died at the age of 87. Age 72. Sorry, Janice Burgess. Backyardigans, 72.
I don't know who that is. What's the Backyardigans?
It's a show. They had it. I remembered watching when I was younger. We're off the air now, but it was a young kids show back then. So the early 2000s era. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Oh,
don't forget, folks. The clocks go ahead 1 hour tonight, so move those clocks. Right. So don't forget that. Just a quick reminder.
Well, I mean, the downside is we lose an hour of sleep, but the upside is we gain some daylight in the Northeast, and
that's not really the right part.
Spring is coming. We mentioned it at the beginning of the show, so
yeah.
Absolutely. Glad you brought that up. I would have forgot to move my clock forward. So
you got to give credit to that, of course.
Anyway, so we covered a lot of stuff, but like I said, very, very excited about the upcoming March Madness tournament. And so
I am
forth.
too.
Yeah, I know.
It's gonna be tons of fun. Watch.
Once we get the brackets out next week, technically we'll actually talk about
In 2 weeks.
Next week on the show, we'll kind of give our preview because when we
We
do
won't
the
know.
show on Saturday, the tournament will start the following. Well, the play games will be Wednesday, and then March
The madness
Madness
begins.
itself officially starts on Thursday, right? You get
Yeah.
an overdose of games Thursday, Friday, and then boom, you're right down to the Sweet 16 after the first couple of days.
Yeah,
Great.
it's crazy.
Yep. And there was one other thing, Eli, you brought up before. I don't know. I wouldn't pay to see it, but Mike Tyson is fighting Jake
Yeah,
Paul.
Mike Tyson is fighting Jake Paul on July 20th, AT&T Stadium on Netflix. It's going to be the top match. I don't know how it's going to be. I think it's going to be causing a lot of controversy. I wouldn't be surprised we get backouts, but it's on Netflix, so I won't be able to watch it.
Yeah, when you think about,
Netflix.
why people would be interested in watching something like this, is a head
Because Mike
scratcher.
Tyson's the greatest fighter of all time, and Jake Paul is the newest greatest boxer of all time. So to go ahead back to back, one of the greatest fights of all time that nobody cannot stop watching. It's going to sell out, guarantee you, and we will not stop talking about it for the next couple of months until it happens, and even when it's over in July. That's just my opinion.
Well, I guess, listen, you said Mike Tyson's 52, so he was tough as nails, but my most vivid memory of Mike Tyson was him getting knocked out by Buster Douglas. It was one of the greatest upsets in sports history, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But listen, it's all about the Benjamins, right? So people
absolutely.
Are
if it's about the Benjamin, it's about the Benjamin. Yeah, you got that right.
All right, Eli.
All right.
Good stuff.
Good
like
show.
I said, great call on the Lindy Ruff thing. I meant to give you that kudo for sure because I didn't see that coming. But that was awesome. And like I said, we're down the stretch in hockey. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. But next week, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the NCAA tournament and kind of give our picks about, potential Final Four. And as always, folks, we appreciate you listening to the show. Our loyal listeners mean everything to us. Got guys like Frankie Pisani sitting, watching our show today. And
yes, indeed.
That was the shout out. He's a Don Bosco guy. So Frankie, thanks.
Congratulations on your Don Bosco. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So folks, we'll be back, but please send us an email, like Eli said, at sportswithmanoandmano@gmail.com. And as Eli pointed out, you can comment on YouTube and
hold on,
and
we got one
Facebook
comment
and
coming up.
right?
Guy Coriano, Roberto Duran, best all time.
Yeah, and except for the fact that Sugar Ray Leonard beat him up pretty good the second time around. So I know Eli doesn't know who Roberto Duran is, but he was one of the toughest pound for pound. His nickname was Hands of Stone. So I remember that. So thanks, guys. But Eli, I wish you a great week. And
have a great week. And we'll see you all next week.
Yep. We'll be back next week, same time. And
same place.
Send us an email and comments. We'd love to hear from you folks. Right?
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Everybody enjoy your week. We'll catch up soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.